Hey guys, what's up? Swift here, and today I will be teaching you another part of your DIY NAS and home server series. Today we will be learning about how to set up some basic security in the form of a firewall. Now we talked about opening up our ports in the previous part, and to say hello world proper to the global internet world, having global access to your home server. Now before we actually do that, to transfer files to and from the outside of your network, we will want to set up what we'll call some basic securities, and this is to ensure that our server will not be compromised in any ways, and if it does get compromised, data will be lost, and it will land in, if it lands in the wrong hands, it's going to be quite devastating. So what we're going to do here is to set up a firewall for our server. Now you might say that, hey Swift, we actually do something that is called port forwarding, so we are actually hiding behind a router that has all ports that are actually closed. So why on earth do we need to do some internal firewall on the server itself? Now in some ways it is true, all ports are currently closed unless you open it and forward it to your service port. Now the thing is, if one of your computers within the network, the local area network, get compromised, the hacker or whoever it is, the intruder, will be able to access your server without any obstacle at all, because your server will be unprotected. So this is more or less to protect yourself from within, and this is quite common really for another computer to within network, another server or so on and so forth, to be the one that is facilitating this intrusion, to facilitate this hack. So and by setting up a firewall on the server itself, this will prevent and deter the intruder from getting such an easy access. So without further ado, let's just talk about some basic security. So the firewall we're going to do here using Ubuntu is a command called Iptables. Now there are other ways of doing to set up firewall rules. Basically there is another one that is supposedly simpler, called uncomplicated firewall, UFW for short. While that can be quite easy and simple, I find some incompatibilities within my system, and it caused some of the firewall stuff to get screwed up. So to do things more straightforward and down to the core, I decided to go ahead and learn with Iptables itself, which by editing it, we will set up the rules that will enable that will be enforced, so that to protect our system. So Iptables here, before we do all that, let us just remove all other kinds of distractions, as in other kinds of applications within the system that might cause some kind of complication or incompatibility. To do that, you first do sudo apt-get remove UFW, and I believe it's something like that. Now you can see that I have one that is actually installed. You might have one as well. It does come installed together with some of the packages, and now we have that removed. Now there shouldn't be any more other incompatibilities from here on now. So to do just to get a feel of what you should see later, you will do something like that. Now Iptables -L, this will list all rules that are available currently in your system. So as you can see, my system is not protected from all kinds of things at all. There is one thing that you can see there, fail to ban SSH. That's basically a service that I will teach you that you can install. Basically what it does is that it limits the number of attempts that a user has to access or attempt to access your SSH, and if he exceeds that limit, he will get banned for that certain period of time. So that is fail to ban. You can simply install it, and it will do its work on its own. So anyway, Iptables. So you can see here is basically blank here. So what we're going to do here is to put in some rules so as to allow it to allow our system to be more secure and safe. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new file here. This file will contain all our rules, and by doing so it's easier to edit and modify. And after we edit this file, we will load this file up onto the Iptables itself. So what we're going to do here is we're going to type here, let's just create a new file / now you can put this anywhere, but just remember where you put it so that you can load it up. So test.rules. So it might or may not be a blank file. It depends on whether you have actually attempted to do previous firewall guides. They usually use this style as well. Basically, I read this up on another website and thought that it's very useful. So what we're going to do here is to start off with a default template. Now you can get this off the internet. I have one on my website itself. You can visit it in the description bar below. That's the written guide. Do visit it to view the full configuration file. So now I'm going to just cut and paste. You can do that as well. These are some of the basic rules that you might have. There we go. Basically, these are the formatting filter. It starts off, ends off with a commit. So there are some descriptions here that explain what each command does. I do not know exactly what each variable does actually. But if you would like to know more in detail, you can actually read it up on the Ubuntu wiki page or something like that, or simply search up Iptables on Google and you will find out a more extensive guide. But some basic things that you should know here is that it starts off with -a. That's basically to tell them to input this command. Input, basically to receive from the outside in, and there is also output to go from inside out. So it's quite simple really. The last part here, accept or reject, is to whether self-explanatory really. Accept or reject the connection here. So you can see here allows all outbound traffic. We have output and then we have accept. Then we have something like here, reject all other inbound, which means close all other ports unless it is specified here. So we have a -a input, -reject. That's all kinds of input we will reject it unless specified. So there's one more thing here is this thing here, internal loopback. Now this is quite important if you have different services that communicate within itself in the server. Say you have a mail server, so on and so forth. This is going to be quite crucial for it to function. So the next thing here that I want to highlight is this. Now if you are using remote access via SSH, please make sure that you have this rule in and that it is working. If you do not have access to the system itself and you lock yourself off your computer or your server, it's going to be quite troublesome really. So what this does is basically open the port 22 to accept new connections and accept inbound traffic to that particular port. So this is port 22 for me. If you have switched your SSH port, go ahead and change that accordingly. So now this is set up ready. You're just gonna have to save it. Now you can add in your own rules or modify and so on and so forth. There are several other rules out there that people have already created, and you can simply cut and paste it. They do work very well, and if you want to modify it to be more extensive and safer, you can read up more on your own, but this will do for basic things. So once we have saved it, what we want to do next is to load it up onto our Iptables. To do that, what we'll do is type in sudo iptables-restore and less than the sign. So you're gonna type in the path to where your file that you were editing is. So that is mine, and that's it really. To see that the rules are inside, you can just type it like that. And there we go, the rules are there already. So now if you have something called Telnet, if you have to enable it in Windows to gain access to it, I'll just show you what it is like to have it in place. Now we're gonna just Telnet, sorry, the IP address of my DIY NAS and the port. Now we have closed. Now currently we have closed all ports except 22, which is my SSH server. So we're gonna just try a random number. Now what will happen here is that access will be denied, and that is because the port is closed and is not accepting any kind of connection, and this will help to prevent any kind of unauthorized access or stuff like that. So you can see there it's trying to connect but it fails. So what we're gonna do here is to show you a open port, what you look like. So obviously port 80 on my web server is online because that is the default port for serving host, and if it is open, if the port is open, you will see a blank image like that. So yeah, so we have finally created the firewall, the rules, and now what we're going to do is to ensure that these rules stay on even if your system shuts down or reboot, if you reboot your system. So what you want to do here, very simply, there are many ways to do this, but I'll teach you a very simple method, is to use something called Iptables persistent. So you're going to have to apt-get it, install Iptables -persistent. Now my apologies, I actually spelled it wrongly. So what you do is you'll get into this screen here, and what you want to do is to just follow accordingly. So it says save current IPv4 rules, you're gonna say yes, because and IPv6 actually we have none set up, so it doesn't really matter. So you load it up and it's going to save. So yeah, so it's actually done already. So now we're going to reboot the system and show you that it will stay. So we're just going to go reboot, and this will take a while. So in the meantime, yeah, right. In the meantime, let's just talk about more about other security things that you can do. One thing is to change your SSH port server. Instead of the default 22, you can change it to something like 80. Sorry, don't use oh my god, that's very bad example. Don't use those default such things as 80. That's for your web server, and 23 and so on and so forth. Those are quite standard ports that are used for other things such as FTP server and so on and so forth. You can use a huge number, say 2000, 1532, 1993, the year I was born, so on and so forth. This will give some kind of it will prevent people who just goes around trying to find servers that have SSH ports of 22 open, and you will prevent such kind of access. Now the next thing here is to use a SSH key instead of a password. I've talked about this before, and what this does prevent is any attempts of brute forcing. Now brute forcing is still possible, but it is definitely much harder to perform if you're using a SSH key. Now the other thing here is to disable root access or root lock-in. That's why I'm using the sudo command. Now if you have root access enabled, it is very dangerous, because should the root user be have unauthorized access gained by another intruder, you are going to have lots and lots of trouble on your server, because he can basically do anything to your server and you can do nothing about it. So anyway, back to that. Those are actually some rules that you should follow, and if you can read up on Google as well, they do explain quite a bit on that as well. Let's just open it up. So now I'll show you that the rules will be loaded. And there we go, the rules are in. Now, one thing I've forgotten on purpose is that to allow a port for my webmin server management panel kind of thing. So I'll just show you. Yeah, sorry about that again. What you want to do is to put it before all the D9. It reads by, it does reads by in sequence, because the commands are somewhat entered in such a way. So anyway, so once you have your rules added in and modified, what you want to do is do this command here. You want to type in sudo and then iptables -save into this particular folder, file. Now, if you have this permission denied, what you want to do, you have to type in a command like that, sudo --c. Now, why exactly is because you do not have a permission to create a file in /etc. It is just some kind of not really a bug. It's just some kind of workaround this issue. So you just have to do that, and it will be saved. So that's about it really. So do remember this command, sudo --c. All this will be in the written guide, so if in configuration file as well, it will be in the written guide. That is all. This should give you ample security against the outside malicious world, and once this is done, we are actually more or less prepared to finally say hello world proper. So I'll see you guys again soon. If you like this video, do give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more of such videos. Thank you.